Welcome back to Pop Tabs. Keep tabs on all your pop culture news. I'm your host, Matthew Yapp. Joining me today is
Jeremy Rogers
and
Jake Helmen.
I'm so excited to have you guys here.
Thanks.
Yes,
We're happy to be here.
You guys are great, but you know who's not as great? Pete Davidson, maybe. Maybe. See, on a recent Saturday Night Live, he made a joke, and the joke was that he had been replacing his fiancée, Ariana Grande. He'd been replacing her birth control pills with Tic Tacs. And the reason for this is not that he doesn't have any faith in their relationship, it's just, he wants to make sure she can't leave. Little uncomfortable, and some people thought offensive. See, what that would be classified as is reproductive coercion, which is a form of domestic abuse. So pretty much he was joking about domestic abuse on Saturday Night Live. What are you guys' initial thoughts on that?
First of all, I think you really pulled it out in the first part where you said it was a joke. I really do think there were so many insulting and crazy things he said during that Saturday Night Live thing.
Yeah.
Especially towards her, that I think pulling out that one is just kind of random, and I'm not sure why. I guess it's just because sexual culture in general is very sensitive and touchy. So, quite literally. So I think that's why. And so I really think it was a joke. I think people are freaking out.
Yeah.
I think that while we can definitely say this was a joke, it was fully intended to be a joke, and it totally came across as a joke. Still a joke in bad taste.
Agreed.
Not that Tic Tacs have a bad taste, but just...
What if it's 100% not a joke? What if he's actually been replacing Ariana Grande's birth control pills with Tic Tacs? I would like that more, actually, if he was just very candid about it.
I'm just like, yeah, I do it.
Yeah.
Then here I am.
See,
what are you going to do about it?
I think it's a pity, because I do think it's in poor taste, too, and I really like Pete Davidson.
It is in poor taste.
I have loved Pete Davidson all the way up until he started dating Ariana Grande, because since he started dating Ariana Grande, all of his jokes are about how he sleeps with Ariana Grande. And I don't like how open he is about
that makes me very uncomfortable.
Yeah, he's so open about their personal sex life and their personal relationship. And it's a little odd. So I agree that it's very much in poor taste that now he's gone from just like throwing their entire sex life out there to like 2 weeks ago he was talking about like she gives the best blowjobs he's ever gotten, which like is weird for this like woman who's not really open about that herself.
Right.
And now he's talking about, oh yeah, I replaced her birth control with Tic Tacs. It's just very odd.
I agree. It is in poor taste. I don't want to say that it's not, because I agree. It made me cringe, and overall I do feel very.
When I watched it, I didn't laugh. I went, oh, yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like if, let's just do this thing, let's say it went the other way and it was like Ariana's in an interview and she says, yeah, I've been poking holes in all the condoms.
Right.
We'd all just be like,
Now, do you think because he's a comedian and he's on SNL, which is just a show for jokes, do you think that makes a little bit of a difference?
Yes.
I mean, I feel like that gives us a little bit of context and, it helps us understand where he's coming from. I'm not sure that makes the joke any better, but it just makes the situation a little more comprehensive.
It puts it more in a place where you can laugh at it, I think.
Yeah.
If he was getting out of a car and was just like, hey,
To the paparazzi.
I'm abusing Ariana Grande, and everyone's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like, what? Was that a
Thanks,
joke?
Pete.
He's laughing as he gets back in the car. But like, you're able to laugh at it, I think, because again, like, it was followed up by all these jokes.
Yeah.
I also want to say too that a big factor of it is because it was Ariana Grande. This is totally something that like Dave Chappelle would make a joke about.
Yeah.
And people would laugh at it. They might get a little offended about it, but they would not get this response. And they got this response because everyone knows Ariana Grande and they picture Ariana Grande.
Well, I think
and they're maybe a little bit jealous.
Maybe. I think right now they're facing, Pete Davidson in his career is kind of facing that he went from being an SNL comic to now he's Ariana Grande's boyfriend. And that's something that I see all the time. Even when people were reporting this, I saw several headlines that were Ariana Grande's boyfriend jokes about on SNL. And so I think he's losing a bit of an identity. So I do think it has to do that it's Ariana Grande and she starred on Nick. She's always been just like she's a fairly sweet girl.
Yep.
And so to hear some guy who's always had a bit of a creepy sense of humor.
What?
Yeah, a few
on
weeks
edge.
ago on Howard Stern, he joked about to last longer in bed, once again talking about their sex life. He's been picturing his father burning alive, and it really works for him. And if you don't know, his father was a firefighter who died in 9/11. Which I'll give, I laughed at that one. And so, yeah, Pete Davidson's always had very edgy humor, so I feel like people are maybe more uncomfortable with the fact that it's Ariana Grande, the sweet girl, being joked about her kind of pervy boyfriend.
It's also not the first time he's joked about his dad dying in all of it either. Like, this has been a reoccurring theme in his life, I guess.
Yeah, from the very first stand-up comedy special I saw, he joked about, he's like, I was pretty okay that my dad was dead because my mom bought me an Xbox, and that seemed like a fair trade to me.
Jesus Christ. He did it on the Bieber roast, too. He said something about, like, after I saw your dad, I'm pretty happy my dad is dead. Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah.
So this is his style, I think. Doesn't make it okay, but you can tell where he's, this is a thing for him. Yeah. Ariana's into it, I guess. Is she?
She's not said otherwise, which is not...
Okay.
It's not an excuse.
No.
No, it doesn't make it okay, but...
And also, just because someone's not coming out and saying my boyfriend makes me uncomfortable, if the past 2 years have taught us anything, just because a woman doesn't say a man's making her uncomfortable does not mean a man's not making her uncomfortable.
Yes.
At all.
Also, just in PR in general, you don't come out against your famous boyfriend, fiance. Yeah, that's just,
I mean, you can do that against your ex.
Yes.
She's got to break it off first.
Yeah.
But, so do you guys think that he's been joking for years about, oh, my dad's dead, haha, funny, even though he died in 9/11, and now he makes kind of sexual jokes and people are starting to see him as skeevy, gross. What do you think the difference in that is?
Well, I feel like when he's talking about his dad, he's not making jokes like about 9/11. He's not making jokes at the expense of other people who died.
Yeah.
He's talking, most of his jokes that are about his dad come from his relationship between him and his dad. Like the Xbox joke, it's about, oh, I thought that was a fair trade-off.
Yeah.
And it's more of just, oh, thinking about it in bed, that's just what I think of. It's not like I just imagine a random firefighter dying in 9/11. It has to be his dad.
That's a good point.
That's valid, actually.
That's a very good point.
That's very valid.
Yeah.
I've always kind of seen it as like, with his dad, it's personal to him, whereas Ariana Grande, it's almost like he's making jokes at her expense.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want to say, because, like, sure, it's like something he's doing, and he's made plenty of jokes about, like, oh, I'm so ugly and, like, stupid and, like, unattractive to most people. It's crazy that Ariana Grande is my girlfriend. And so, sure, those are, like, self-deprecating, but at the same time, they're pulling her into it.
Right, like when he jokes, like, yeah, after sex, I'm just like, thank you so much for touching me. Like, that's just, we're crossing that line.
It's creepy.
Because now it really is. It's like, it's turning Ariana Grande into, like, she's in a very uneven relationship. Which, like, she might not, maybe she does, but I'm guessing she doesn't feel like she's in a negative relationship. So to, like, keep portraying her over and over again is like, oh yeah, look at her settling for me. I'm sure it's uncomfortable for her.
Yeah. I wonder if, too, you talked about him, like, transitioning. Like, I think he kind of always played this self-deprecating guy.
Yes.
And now he's instantly dating the biggest pop star known to be, like, very good looking.
Yeah.
So how do you, like, this was written into the script, now what do I do with my character that is now this self-deprecating guy that is now dating a super attractive woman?
To be fair,
I abuse her, and that's, I feel like that's kind of what's going through his head.
To be fair, he is in a very sitcom situation. If this happened on, like, Seinfeld, if, like, Jerry Seinfeld started dating someone who was, like, Ariana Grande's level, that entire season would just be making fun of Jerry Seinfeld. Also, don't like that imagery.
No, not at all. No soup for you, Matt.
Good Seinfeld references. Good.
Nice. Yeah, very nice. I'll take that.
But something else people have criticized is the fact that SNL read his script and knew it was going to come on. They knew a joke about domestic violence was going to be on their thing, and they aired it anyways, which is interesting considering SNL has always ran a little blue in terms of, like, politics. It's a fairly progressive, we'll say. Show, and so it's a little odd to some people that they're allowing a joke about domestic violence to go on. Do you think they're responsible to an extent?
I mean, I think it's interesting to look at, like, the double, if we want to throw out the term double standard. I mean, the cold open about Brett Kavanaugh. I mean, granted, they're mostly making fun of how much he likes beer. Yeah. But, I mean, there's still that other side of it that we're making fun of. And that's the object of ridicule, is this dude who's done this thing. And then we flip the script around and it's okay when it's one of us?
When it's one of our people.
That's just kind of weird.
You're not wrong.
No, because I'm sure had Brett Kavanaugh, gross guy, said on SNL or anywhere, had Brett Kavanaugh made it even a joke about like replacing birth control with Tic Tacs, everyone would be like, that's disgusting. But because Pete Davidson did it on, and we like Pete Davidson more
in the context,
we're all a little more okay with it, and so it is a double standard essentially.
Totally.
Which is unfortunate. But personally, do I think SNL itself is responsible? No. Like, yes, they read the script, but ultimately, I don't think in the same way that it's like if a actor almost was doing something outside of a show, the show is responsible. But I think Pete Davidson and SNL, they're very separated. Like, we look at him like a comedian, and this is just his platform, and not so much he's an SNL actor. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm, totally.
So I don't think SNL necessarily was digging a grave on this one.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
I have something else that I kind of found while I was thinking about this is we talk about double standards, and I'm not trying to do a whataboutism, because I think that's common right now and very gross. But I just want to say that there was a thing on Wendy Williams' show a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yes.
Yeah, where the woman asked like, "Hey, I had one child, and my husband promised me we'd have 2 children, and we had 1 child. Now he doesn't want to have it anymore. What should I do? Like, should I maybe trick him?" And Wendy Williams is like, "Yes, stop, don't tell him you're taking your pill, and just have the baby." And everyone cheered. He's like, "Right, ladies?" said Wendy Williams, and everyone cheered. And so it was very sickening and weird to watch.
It was almost culty.
It was very culty and weird. And I'm not saying everyone's like that, but it was a little strange just to compare, the woman's side of that thing too.
Yeah.
Not saying that it's accepted. I don't think so, but
Yeah, I think Wendy Williams is kind of the onus for her. She runs a show that is very much like, we'll cheer when Wendy talks.
That's true, yeah.
And so that might be a part of it. But no, I do think it's interesting to look at it's gross when he did it. But when they did it, ooh, it's a girl, she's just having her babies because she deserves them. It's a little odd.
It is.
It's very odd.
It is.
Good for women.
Yay, women.
But yay women. You know who doesn't think yay women? The fans of Total War 2.
Yes!
That was good. The fans of Total War 2, or Total War Rome 2, they've recently caught some flack because the fans are very angry that they're, with a recent update, is now female generals, which is a little odd.
Can I just throw in, first of all, this game is 5 years old.
Yeah.
And they're still putting out updates that are affecting people and how they feel. Good job.
I was saying,
Good
shout
job.
out to the game.
Well done.
Yeah, shout out to Total
More
War's
claps.
developers.
Yeah,
I'm sure it sounds great on mic. But see, the issue a lot of people are having is they are saying that it's not the fact that we're angry that women are in the game now. They're angry that it's not historically accurate, because at that time period that the game is set, there were not female generals in the areas that the game is taking place in. So what are your initial thoughts on that?
Well, I have 2 things that are going to sound like they contradict each other, but they don't.
We'll see.
First of all, I do think that this can be, in some ways, a little bit of a bastion for sexism, just a little bit.
Yeah.
I think people are kind of like, aha, I can find a moment to show my, sexism. But I also do think that this game does, very much thrive, and from the beginning said, we are going to be the most historical as possible, everything. So I do think that it's not wrong to have it in there, but maybe there should just be a switch that you turn off. You turn on, it says historical mode. You turn off, and it's not historical mode.
Aha,
Okay.
So I mean, so what you're saying is there should be a campaign where you literally cannot win because all nation states eventually fall. The name of the game is Total War, and the aim of the game is to win.
You're right.
As a certain civilization, and as far as we know, that hasn't really happened.
No.
So
that's
The only nation
You're
that's
right.
won is the nation of capitalism. They've defeated us.
we're working on Space Force, but
But the one thing I'd say about that, because I do get that it's not historically accurate, but you know what else isn't historically accurate? That all the characters speak English. Every character in the game, they're speaking English, everything, all the text is in English, everything's in
Right,
English.
right.
That's not historically accurate.
Sure.
A lot of these things, they are made to make the game better. Now, rather or not you think the women being included in the game makes it better, that's a whole other conversation.
Right.
But I do think it's in my opinion, and feel free to disagree, I think that they are using the guise of historical accuracy to just be like, oh, I don't want women in my games. But that's a little hard to say.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's kind of a bastion a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like their way to get to saying that.
Yeah.
I do also say that it is what are video games, but making these situations that are out there and different. And,
right.
What if women were generals back then? Let's
Yeah.
find out. Let's put them in there. Let's put them together. Let's have them fight with the men. What? I don't know. I think that's part of the game. You might as well watch a movie if you just want to have historical all the time, 100%. No changes.
Go to
Or
a
read
museum.
a book. Yeah.
Or a book or a museum. Yeah, anything.
See, I personally just feel like a lot of gamers they're not used to having women in their lives in any way, and it kind of frightens them, and they don't know how to deal with that, so they get angry. And so when women appear in their video games, they just can't help themselves.
We here at Byte recognize that a large part of our fan base are gamers, and I disagree with what Jeremy's saying.
And our women.
Also, women.
I'm saying that the people who are angry about this do not necessarily represent all gamers.
Of course.
But I mean, the types of gamers who get angry that, there's a woman in my video game.
No, I think that's actually very important. That being said, though, from the complete other side, like you said, Total War did very much present itself as we're going to be as historically accurate as possible. And they went 5 years without having female generals in the game. So do you think at this point the reason they're doing it is because they think it makes a better game, or do you think that they are pulling a, for lack of a better word, just SJW like inclusion thing, trying to gain almost brownie points for it? Or do you think they really thought it made it a better game?
If they really wanted SJW brownie points, they would make that a new unit in the game. I want to be a social justice warrior.
I would play that class every day.
Absolutely.
I usually go rogue, but nah, I'm playing social justice warrior now.
SJW all the way.
But I honestly get what you're saying, but I do really feel like it is just them trying to be like, hey, we have women now, good for us. Like, I don't think they thought it added to the game.
What armor would SJW wear?
Oh, that's a great question, Jake. That has nothing to do with this podcast. Answer the question.
I feel like they'd be more of a spellcaster and you'd, cast safe space around you. But, sorry.
Every day I try to host a good podcast, and every day my guests ruin it. Jake, answer the question.
What was the question?
Do you think that they did it for brownie points?
No, I don't. I think it's right in the middle. Well, I guess the first thing you said, I think it's to make the game better or just more fun in general. I have not been playing this game, but I'm saying I have been playing this game for 5 years with all these men and everything. What if I threw some women in, like I said earlier? What would happen? I don't know, for fun. It's all like a simulation kind of.
Right.
So why not add more variables? That's all. I really think that's all it was.
Okay.
I mean, kudos to I don't think that the original decision was motivated by, social justice concerns. Mm-hmm. But I think you got to give the studio and got to give them a hand for sticking by their decision and keeping that once they actually implemented it.
Yes.
And who knows, maybe it's a feature that they're testing out for a future project.
Yep.
Total War Rome 3, only women.
Only women.
It's their tagline.
Goddesses.
Goddesses of War, oh my god. Somebody, when that comes out, give me money for it.
We had Total War Napoleon, now we're going to have Total War Cleopatra.
Ooh. But no, I will say, because the company, after they were review bombed, they went from having a pretty high score on Steam, it got trashed instantly, because literally thousands of people came on and disliked it because women were in the game. Now, I know that sounds like I'm mocking them for being sexist, but it's kind of hard not to. But yeah, they downvoted the game because it had women in the game now. And so despite all the terrible reviews they were getting, the game company was like, well, too bad, we're gonna keep it. Good. Sorry about that. Mm-hmm. We know you guys are upset and want it to be historically accurate, but it's still pretty historically accurate. So I respect the fact that they managed to buckle down on it. Yeah. But do you guys think in general with things like this, gaming companies should kind of bend to the will of the masses, or do you think it's better to stick to a vision?
No, stick to a vision all the way. Mm-hmm. I mean, all of AAA gaming, all we see is bending to the will of other people, whether it's a studio, development house, or market forces.
Yeah.
It's so rare to be able to actually see someone's artistic vision in any sort of major games. I mean, we get a couple of indie releases like Owlboy, which are developed by a single person, that get released, and they're wonderful, but we don't get to see that in these upper echelons.
I agree. I think that it is important. I think that oftentimes it's not done with the Division because it's not very safe, and it's because of money, obviously.
Right.
But I think that oftentimes what people will find is that when there's true just like vision, I think if someone made Total War All Women Edition, I really think it would do pretty well. Surprisingly,
I'd play that.
I really think that would sell pretty well, and they'd be pretty surprised.
Yeah.
So.
No, I think vision is genuinely more important than anything in a game, because I think video games are art, and so at the end of the day, your art just has to stick to what you're trying to do. Cuphead, I think, is a great example, because that game, their entire selling point is everything is hand drawn. It's this old-fashioned cartoon style that made the game impossible to make. It took so long to release, and fans were just like, forget it, do it the easy way, we just want the game. And they were like, no, you're gonna wait 6 years. And it came out as an incredibly unique, incredibly entertaining game.
Very well.
And so I think you just have to stick to the vision, or else you end up with Call of Duty Black Ops 7, because that's what people want. That entire game is just like the zombie mode, because that's what the fans liked. They really went for that.
Get that XP bonus. Buy those Tostino's pizza rolls.
Oh God, is that a thing? That's a thing.
Yeah,
oh
that was
no.
the thing.
No, that's Assassin's Creed Odyssey. They've got the tie-in with Tostino's.
I respect it.
Assassin's Creed Women's Edition.
Now, on the topic of women's editions, not just for this game, but just for video games and movies in general, how important do you think inclusion compared to historical accuracy is? Do you feel like you should kind of waver on historical accuracy to include more people of color and more women, or do you think you need to stick to the story and make it as historically accurate as possible?
I think there's a place for historical accuracy, and I think there's a place for inclusion. I mean, we're in the age of Hamilton, the musical, and I think we can all agree that its lack of historical accuracy doesn't make it a worse
George
musical.
Washington being black really only helped me because he raps a lot, and I really did not want to see a white dude trying to do that.
Yeah.
But
I'm with you there too.
Yeah.
I think that there is a place for both. When I first heard this story, I didn't know Total War 2 Rome, whatever the title is, and so I assumed, oh great, this is just another person being like, it's not accurate, when it's literally like no one ever said this should be accurate or can be.
Yeah.
But like in this instance, they did market it as we're going to be the most accurate historically as possible. So let's have that, and let's also have versions where they're not that. And so I think that having both of them is okay.
I'd like to say women existed at this time.
Right.
Women were there. It's not a crazy stretch that one picked up a sword and a helmet. So I don't get quite the anger.
Right.
But what I will say about the including minorities, excluding minorities thing, inclusion in general, I think that people are usually fairly happy. They're like, oh, cool. Like we got with Deadpool, even though it wasn't true to the comics, Domino is black now, and people were like, great, she changed races. However, in other cases, some people are criticized for not being historically accurate when they whitewash. The first thing that came to my mind was Prince of Egypt. That movie came out, and it was Jake Gyllenhaal playing an Egyptian man. He's not Egyptian, if you can't tell, because he's white. And a lot of movies in Egypt always use white people. They don't seem to think about the fact that it's in Africa. But, so a lot of people were immediately very angry, and the first thing they cited was, well, that's not historically accurate. Someone wouldn't look like Jake Gyllenhaal there. So, to play devil's advocate, do you think people are being incredibly hypocritical when it's okay if it's not historically accurate if it's a person of color, but it's not okay if it's historically accurate if it's a white person? What do you think about that?
I think it's the reasoning behind it. They didn't pick Jake Gyllenhaal because it would make, well, I was gonna say because it wouldn't make it a better movie. It'd make it a better selling movie.
Yeah.
But they didn't pick him because it would be a better movie. They would pick someone historically accurate if they wanted a better movie, right? And more accurate and more interesting to watch. But they wanted money more, and so that's the difference. On one side, you're picking historically accurate to or you're picking unhistorically accurate to make money, and other times you're picking historically accurate to make money, depending on what your biases are and races and such like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's just important to recognize where we come from in society and where these, different demographics are in relation to each other, how much privilege they have, how much privilege they've historically had. And I think it's important to just consider the needs of, where we are now. Do women play as many video games as men? Yes, they do. But they don't play the same types of games, though, and I don't think there's anything wrong with trying to be more inclusive and try to expand your game base.
Yeah. Yep. No, I think it really, like you guys both said, it really does come down to kind of the motivation where when you are whitewashing a movie, the reason you're probably doing it is to make money, and that's a little gross. Where when you're making a movie not as historically accurate, but it's more inclusive, again, you probably are going for money, but at the very least we can go with money with the idea that like, we're being a little more inclusive. We're telling a story in a way that's not been told previously, because we've had lots of stories that are very white been told, but we haven't had all these stories told by a person of color, and so it does add a new dynamic to it, and so I think that is important. I think the portrayal of people really does affect the way we view them, and so when we have more stories that aren't necessarily historically accurate, but people of color are leading, it changes the way we look at them, which I think is important.
I mean, you seek out media where you see yourself represented.
Yes, but you know who's being represented poorly? Sociopath, which is an improper term that Shane Dawson is using an awful lot lately. What I mean is Shane Dawson has he's releasing an 8-part docuseries. He's released 4 parts of it at the time of this recording. And throughout the whole thing, he's been talking about Jake Paul, who is a very, very popular YouTube star. I don't know, internet personality, really. He is kind of known for being a bit of a douchebag, for a lack of a better word. And Shane Dawson is releasing this series following him around, and without letting Jake Paul know, the real purpose of this series was not to highlight his life, it was to prove he was a sociopath, which I'm going to note right now is not a scientifically accurate term. The proper term is antisocial personality disorder, or ASPD. And so, yeah, some people are really angry because through the whole thing, Shane Dawson's like, oh my gosh, how scary is Jake Paul? We should all be afraid of him. He's a sociopath. Yeah. Like, what a crazy person. When in reality, about 1 in 20 people in America have some form of ASPD. So, do you guys think this is offensive? Do you think it's careless? What are your thoughts?
I think it's terrible. It's so awful in every single way. Not just in terms of representation, but production value. Shane, you've been at YouTube for how long? Get an editor.
That was really rough. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, watching that, I was like, really? This editing is horrible.
So many jump cuts.
A lot of jump cuts. Well, and also, these things are getting 18 million views. You have the budget.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But past us being lame and talking about video production, do you guys think that it is a bit more, I don't know, is he doing it for entertainment purposes so it's okay, or is it just messed up to improperly portray mental health to 18 million people?
Now, Matt, I'm going to give you a hypothetical. Stop me if you think I'm going to say something bad. I'm not racist, but
okay. Yeah.
So when you put in segments into your documentary that say, when we show these clips, we're not accusing anyone of being a psychopath, or we're not intending to diagnose anyone, but here's some footage of some serial killers and some murderers, and we're going to say that right next to Jake Paul's name.
Next to it. Yeah.
What I think is a little messed up is throughout this whole series, he's been like, well, I'm not trying to diagnose him, but here is a psychologist who does diagnose people, and she's going to list off all the things that he just did as a possible symptom of that.
Yep.
And then we're going to talk really quick about how each of those symptoms could possibly manifest themselves in Jake Paul and his videos.
And I heard a rumor once that he maybe did one of these symptoms one time with this one person. So that's
this YouTube thing he does to make his living? Sometimes he does things on there that a normal person wouldn't do.
I do agree with part of his thing where he talked about all YouTubers have to have some kind of disorder. Because
Honestly.
I kind of have to agree with that one.
I think
We're going to be on YouTube, so.
I think anyone who spends their entire life trying to form a character, because sure, he's a douchebag, but Jake Paul is playing a character. You may not want to believe that, but everything he does is a character. It is a calculated move to entertain people.
Yep.
So anything you do that is purely to be a character and entertain people, yeah, I think Shane Dawson's a little bit on the money, that you have to be a little wrong in the head to spend your whole life calculating every move you make to think about how will this make me look in the YouTube eye? Will it make me profitable? Will it make me marketable? There's probably a little something funky going on up there.
And it was really interesting to see him throw that accusation at Jake Paul, but
As
to
if
like,
he's not doing it.
yeah,
As if it's him, yeah.
with all the self-awareness of Donald Trump,
Yep.
putting out an angry tweet at 2:30 in the morning.
Covfefe. What bothers me, again, so much bothers me about this, is he very much talked about, like, Jake Paul and sociopaths, again, not a proper term, all they do is they don't have real emotion. All they do is they emulate what emotion should be, and they do things that would, like, garner emotion when it's actually fake. While throughout this whole documentary, he's putting in scary music, and when he's talking, he puts in sympathetic sad
Yes,
music.
yes.
So
And when he's not talking, he's just hanging there like Kristen Stewart, with his mouth slightly open, looking very concerned.
To play devil's advocate, though, and what he said, what his argument was when he apologized was that this is for entertainment, and like, would you rather just put this out as a boring like PowerPoint online about here's what sociopath is, or do you want me to showcase it in a way that's entertaining, gets people in to learn about the mental illnesses and understand what that means and how to diagnose someone who is and understand how to deal with them. Otherwise, you're not going to learn any of that. So, what are you gaining versus what are you losing by watching this?
Well, I'm going to make you keep playing devil's advocate.
Let's do it.
What you said is very correct, that, yeah, no one would care, no one would look at it. But what Shane Dawson also said in his apology video, because he released a series of Snapchat videos that hosted as an apology, he said, he was like, no, this will let people understand the disease and, be able to diagnose it. But everything he's doing is not accurate. It's medically inaccurate, so he is misinforming people. Sure, it's entertaining, but first off, sociopath is not a real term. The symptoms he has manifest on a lot of people and does not mean they're a sociopath. So his argument that, like, I'm just trying to, like, let people know in an entertaining way what this disease is like, doesn't work because he's not doing that.
But how can he even do that when he brags in his apology video, I've read 2 books on this, guys, trust me. But then he also goes on to say, but I can't explain what a psychopath is because it's hard, guys. Like, how can you expect me to do that?
Sociopath.
No, he uses the terms interchangeably.
Does he? I haven't heard him say psychopath yet.
He starts
I know they're
out
different.
He starts out using psychopath all the time, and then he switches occasionally and throws in a sociopath.
Not once does he say ASPD,
I know.
which is a shame.
Right.
He has other people say it for him. But I mean, how can you say that when you can't even explain what it is you're talking about, how can you make the argument that, in good faith, that what you're doing is an entertaining way to get people to learn about this when you can't even teach them?
That being said, do you guys think it's okay to make something that's a little medically inaccurate to make it entertaining?
Not like this, no. Not at all.
Not at the expense of others. I'll say
I
that.
do. I know I've sat here and talked about how, like, oh, that's so messed up, but I'm
it is entertaining. It's getting views. I don't know.
Okay, the main reason I can't be mad at Shane Dawson is all I do in my free time is I watch horror movies. It's all I do. I love slasher movies. I love to see people die on film. Don't know what that's about. I should probably talk to someone. But
Sociopath.
yeah.
Not us, though.
No, not you. But all I do is watch horror movies, and all horror movies do is portray mentally ill people. They use terms like sociopath and psychopath as these crazy killers.
Yeah.
And am I aware that that's not medically accurate? Yeah, but do I still have a nice time anyway, and I'm okay with kind of being like, all right, that's our explanation for why our killer's a killer? Yes, I just take that and I accept that. I think at the end of the day, entertainment at the end of the day, it's trying to entertain you. It's trying to make you feel a way. I wish Shane Dawson would be smart enough to say, hey guys, don't come to this as like a medical thing. Come to this to watch a weird, entertaining docuseries about this dude who's like Jake Paul, not saying he's a sociopath, I genuinely don't think he is. Do I think he's like crazy? Yeah, like the homeboy's really got to learn. I think he needs to learn punishment because I don't think he's ever had repercussions for anything his whole life, but that's another story.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to have to disagree with you there and say that if he's going to go with this entertainment route, he shouldn't be branding it as a documentary series. He should be branding it as, hey guys, this is a film theory, or whatever he wants to do.
Sorry, Matt Pat.
But even Matt Pat had more cogent arguments about the Paul brothers than Shane Dawson did. There was a segment in one of the episodes where he goes, maybe Jake's a psychopath and he resents his brother because his brother isn't one, and maybe that's why they feud. I mean, Matt Pat's video on why they feud, taking advantage of YouTube's algorithms, was more convincing.
Listen, I know it's not a documentary because documentaries need to be like researched and correct. This is not a documentary. But again,
do they though? Do documentaries have to be researched and correct?
Well,
if they're gonna be good, yeah.
I don't know. That's what I'm saying.
I'll say they should be, I think is a better way to put it. But that's the thing, they don't have to be, because at the end of the day, he is a creator, and unfortunately, we live in a world where this is what people want to watch.
Mm-hmm. And you're right back to the art argument as well.
That's true.
This is his vision.
This is a vision,
right?
And I'm not saying it's a good vision.
It's
medically accurate, historically accurate versus vision.
That's it's not quite 2020, but it's a vision.
Well, I mean, there is artistic vision, and he can put in all the clips of O.J. Simpson and Eileen Wuornos that he wants.
A lot of them.
You know, he can put in all the canted angles, all the, you know, scary imagery, the scary sound effects that he wants for his vision, mm-hmm. But let's make this a Halloween special, and let's not say, oh, I'm gonna quote Dr. Phil, a guy that stopped practicing psychology well before I got famous on YouTube.
We're pulling out Dr. Phil now, dang.
Dr. Phil, for most of his career, did not have a doctorate, just saying.
I mean, he did at some point, but then he let his license lapse back in, I think, 2006.
Yeah, he doesn't have one anymore. It's a pity, but he still has the show.
I have a question for you, Matt. Do you know why it was changed to ASPD? I'm just curious.
Sociopath was literally just like never used. It was kind of it was like a thing that was like thought that this could be a thing.
Okay.
But it wasn't ever like fully like executed and researched to be a real thing. Basically, sociopath, like the tendencies that they say make a sociopath, mm-hmm. They all can be just a combination of ASPD.
Okay. So sociopath isn't necessarily a medical thing at all.
Yeah, not at all.
It's just that ASPD is the closest thing to it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And especially,
now I'm learning.
Yes, and especially one thing that should be noted is people who have ASPD aren't violent. Like, it's not like in this show where he's like, should we be afraid of him? Guys, he's really scary. I think he's a sociopath. Someone who would be diagnosed as a sociopath, that doesn't make them violent. That just means they can't feel emotion in the same way that we do. Yeah. Right. And so, yeah. Speaking of not feeling emotion, in his apology video, the only part I've actually got offended by in all this, and that he did catch even more flack for, Shane Dawson said, sociopaths can't feel emotion. They can't care, so they can't be offended. So I shouldn't have to apologize because the people it affects, they can't be offended. They're not offended because they can't be. He kept saying if someone's a real sociopath, then they wouldn't actually care, which really did. It rubbed me very much the wrong way.
It's like making an Anne Frank joke and saying, well, her and her family are dead, so they can't be offended.
That's a good point, actually.
Yeah.
But what are your guys' thoughts on this idea that just because someone can't be offended means other people can't be offended for them?
I mean, if you make a really shit joke in the middle of a forest and no one's around to hear it, did you still make the joke?
If you make a suicide joke in the middle of a suicide forest, Logan Paul, people still get offended.
Logan.
Gang, low gang.
Also, this is gonna bring it back one more time again. So now are we allowed to be offended for Ariana Grande for Pete Davidson's actions?
Ooh, I mean, I think so. I kind of was.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. As long as we're on the same page, I agree. Yeah, I think you can be offended for other people.
Right. And also,
But-
even if someone with ASPD necessarily they don't feel the emotion that we would describe as like offended, in the series he talks about over and over again sociopaths manage to mimic emotion. So even if they're just mimicking the emotion that they know they should be offended, they're still their version of offended. So I think it's pretty rude just to assume like, oh, it doesn't matter to them, so I can say it. That would, kind of like you said, that would almost be like, well, I made a racist joke, but the person wasn't in the room, or someone of that race wasn't in the room, so it doesn't matter. But, yeah, it's a little slimy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just so dramatic, Shane.
Very
just
dramatic.
Tone it down, dude. Yeah. Tone it down.
But that being said, what are your final thoughts on this or anything else we talked about today?
I am sorry I gave Shane Dawson a view. It just makes me sad inside. I'm never going to get that time back in my life, and that's forever going to be on his analytics.
But I appreciate you watched him for the show.
That's right. It's called research.
Yes, it's gross.
Research.
Jake, any closing thoughts?
Nope.
Fair enough. I like Pete Davidson's old stuff. We'll see if I keep watching his stand-up specials. Total War 2, I never played it, and I'm still not going to, but I'm not mad about it. And Shane Dawson, I won't watch the rest of the docuseries.
Yeah.
But that's all we have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. He at least knows to mimic the emotion of, you can walk. You're good. Just edit this part out. Yeah, no, you can just cross the screen. You're fine. Edit that bit out.
Do you want to restart at my part? It was really
Turn around and someone's just like arm and
it's
crawling.
very uncomfy.